My wife says she works late Tuesdays. Her office building is empty. The most devastating betrayals often hide behind the most mundane lies. When someone claims to be working late, it seems like such an ordinary, believable explanation that you never think to question it. Work schedules can be unpredictable, deadlines create pressure, and staying late at the office is a common enough occurrence that it rarely raises suspicions. But when that routine excuse becomes a weekly pattern that conceals systematic deception, discovery can be more devastating than elaborate lies because it reveals how easily your trust can be exploited through the simplest explanations. Regular patterns of deception are particularly cruel because they demonstrate premeditation and systematic planning rather than impulsive mistakes. When someone establishes a weekly routine of lying about their whereabouts while maintaining the pretense of being a committed partner, they're not just betraying you once. They're betraying you repeatedly, methodically, and with careful attention to creating believable cover stories that exploit your natural trust in their professional responsibilities. I'm David, 33 years old, and I work as a financial advisor for an investment firm in Phoenix. My wife Sarah and I have been married for 6 years, together for 8. She's 31 and works as a human resources coordinator for a mid-sized marketing agency downtown. We own a townhouse in a suburban development, have a golden retriever named Cooper, and what I believed was a solid marriage built on mutual respect, shared financial goals, and compatible visions for our future together. Sarah's job at the marketing agency typically involved standard business hours with occasional evening events or deadline-driven projects that required extra time. She'd always been dedicated to her career and took pride in being reliable and thorough in her professional responsibilities. I'd always admired her work ethic and supported her commitment to doing quality work, even when it occasionally meant adjusting our personal plans to accommodate her job requirements. For the past 4 months, Sarah had been staying late at work every Tuesday evening, usually not arriving home until around 9:30 or 10 p.m. She'd explained that her company was implementing a new employee management system that required extensive data migration and training sessions that could only be conducted after regular business hours when the system wouldn't interfere with daily operations. The IT department can only work on the system upgrades on Tuesday evenings, Sarah would explain when she'd call to let me know she'd be late. They need HR to be there to supervise the employee data transfers and make sure everything is properly configured. It's a huge project, but it's necessary for streamlining our processes. The explanation seemed completely reasonable and professional. System upgrades and data migrations typically do require after-hours work to avoid disrupting normal business operations, and HR involvement would be essential for protecting employee information and ensuring proper configuration of personnel management tools. I supported Sarah's dedication to this important project and adjusted my Tuesday routine to accommodate her late schedule. I'd make dinner for myself, take Cooper for his evening walk alone, and usually be reading or watching television when Sarah returned home, typically looking tired from what appeared to be long, demanding work sessions. Last Tuesday evening, I decided to surprise Sarah by bringing her dinner at her office since she'd mentioned that the data migration sessions were particularly intensive and she'd probably skip eating to focus on the project. I prepared her favorite meal, grilled chicken salad with homemade vinaigrette, and drove to her company's office building around 8 p.m., planning to deliver the food and maybe stay for a few minutes to see how the project was progressing. When I arrived at the office building, I immediately noticed that the parking lot was completely empty except for a few cars that appeared to belong to the cleaning crew. The building itself was dark except for some security lighting and what looked like standard overnight illumination in the lobby area. I walked to the main entrance and found it locked, with no evidence of any employee activity or after-hours work sessions. Through the glass doors, I could see that the lobby was empty and the elevator banks were clearly not in use. This wasn't a building where intensive system upgrade work was happening. This was a building that had been closed for regular business hours with no indication of ongoing professional activities. I stood in the parking lot for several minutes, trying to process what I was seeing and determine if there might be some explanation for the discrepancy between Sarah's description of her Tuesday work schedule and the reality of her company's building being completely vacant. I called Sarah's office phone number from my cell phone and got an automated message indicating that the office was closed and providing standard business hours. I tried calling the main company number and received the same automated response, confirming that the marketing agency was not conducting after-hours operations that evening. The realization that Sarah had been lying about working late on Tuesdays was devastating, but the systematic nature of her deception made it even worse. This wasn't a one-time lie to cover up a single incident. This was a weekly pattern of deliberate dishonesty that had been ongoing for 4 months, while I'd been admiring her dedication to her professional responsibilities. I sat in my car in the empty parking lot, holding the dinner I'd prepared for Sarah and trying to understand what she'd actually been doing during the hours she claimed to be working on data migration projects. The only certainty was that she wasn't at her office and hadn't been for any of the previous Tuesday evenings when she'd maintained this elaborate lie about system upgrades and after-hours IT work. I drove home and waited for Sarah to return, planning to confront her about the discovery that her Tuesday work schedule was fabricated. The evidence was undeniable. Her office building was empty. Her company wasn't conducting after-hours operations, and she'd been systematically lying about her whereabouts for months. Sarah arrived home around 9:45 p.m., carrying her usual work materials and displaying the same tired demeanor she'd shown after previous Tuesday evening work sessions. She greeted me casually and began describing the challenges of the data migration project, completely unaware that I'd discovered her lies. The system integration was particularly complicated tonight, she said while unpacking her laptop bag. We had some compatibility issues between the old database and the new employee management platform. I think we're making good progress, but these Tuesday sessions are definitely more intensive than we originally anticipated. I listened to her elaborate fabrication about technical challenges and project complications, realizing that she'd been constructing detailed fictional narratives about work activities that weren't happening. The level of creativity and specificity in her lies demonstrated how much thought and planning had gone into maintaining her Tuesday deception. Sarah, I said after she finished her fictional account of the evening's work, I went to your office tonight around 8 o'clock. The change in her expression was immediate and dramatic. The color drained from her face. Her mouth opened slightly as if to speak, but no words came out, and her entire body language shifted from casual Tuesday evening routine to panic and desperation. The building was completely empty, I continued. There were no cars in the parking lot, no lights on in the offices, and the main entrance was locked. Your company isn't conducting any after-hours system upgrades or data migration sessions. Sarah stood in our living room holding her laptop bag, unable to maintain eye contact and clearly struggling to formulate some explanation for what I discovered. But there was no innocent reason for her to be lying about working late every Tuesday for 4 months while her office building remained empty and inactive. David, she started, her voice barely above a whisper. I can explain. Then explain, I said, because right now it looks like you've been lying to me about where you spend your Tuesday evenings for the past 4 months. The conversation that followed revealed months of systematic deception about an affair Sarah had been conducting with someone she'd met through an online community related to her professional interests. They'd been meeting every Tuesday evening at various locations, restaurants, bars, hotels, while she maintained the elaborate fiction about after-hours work projects to cover her activities. It started as just professional networking, Sarah said, though her explanation sounded rehearsed and unconvincing. I met him through a professional HR forum online, and we started meeting to discuss industry trends and career development strategies. But professional networking meetings don't typically require elaborate lies about system upgrades and data migration projects. When someone creates fictional work scenarios to cover their activities, it indicates that those activities are inappropriate and potentially damaging to their marriage. Sarah admitted that her relationship with this person had evolved from professional discussions to personal conversations to emotional intimacy and eventually to physical involvement. The Tuesday evening meetings had become the primary focus of her week, something she looked forward to and planned around, while treating our marriage as an obligation to be managed through careful scheduling and systematic deception. I didn't plan for it to become what it became, she said, but he understands my professional ambitions and creative interests in ways that I've been missing in our relationship. The revelation that Sarah had been conducting a comprehensive affair while maintaining the daily pretense of being a committed wife was devastating, but the systematic nature of her lies made it even worse. She'd been living a double life for months, creating elaborate fictional narratives about her professional responsibilities while using that time to develop an intimate relationship with someone else. The discovery that her Tuesday work schedule was fabricated also made me question everything else about her recent behavior and activities. If she could lie so systematically about something as routine as staying late at the office, what other aspects of her daily life might be based on deception? When I asked Sarah whether she wanted to try to save our marriage or continue her affair, she initially claimed that she wanted to end the other relationship and rebuild our marriage. But her confession revealed that she'd been considering leaving me for this person and had been discussing the possibility of divorce with him during their Tuesday meetings. We talked about what it would be like if we were both free to be together openly, she admitted. We discussed whether our connection was was strong enough to justify ending our marriages. The knowledge that Sarah had been evaluating our marriage as potentially disposable while conducting her affair made the betrayal even more painful. She'd been treating our relationship like a backup option while exploring whether her Tuesday evening companion might offer a better alternative. I told Sarah that I needed time to process what I'd learned and decide whether I could rebuild trust with someone who'd been systematically deceiving me for months while maintaining the pretense of dedication to her professional responsibilities. The marriage counseling sessions we attended revealed that Sarah's affair had been facilitated by her dissatisfaction with what she perceived as routine aspects of our relationship. But instead of discussing these concerns with me, she'd sought emotional and physical fulfillment outside our marriage while maintaining the appearance of commitment. I felt like our relationship had become predictable, she said during counseling. Meeting someone who was excited about the same professional interests I have made me feel intellectually stimulated in ways I'd been missing. But the counselor helped us understand that marriages require ongoing communication about needs and interests, and that seeking fulfillment through secret relationships while lying about your activities represents a fundamental violation of the trust and commitment that make partnerships sustainable. Despite our efforts in counseling, the trust issues proved insurmountable. Sarah's systematic deception about her Tuesday activities had revealed a willingness to maintain elaborate lies while conducting an affair, and I couldn't feel confident that she would be honest about her activities and relationships in the future. 6 months later, we decided to divorce. Sarah's relationship with her Tuesday evening companion continued briefly after our separation, but according to mutual friends, it didn't survive the transition from secret meetings to an open relationship. Much of the excitement and intensity had been based on the forbidden nature of their connection rather than genuine long-term compatibility. The divorce was finalized 8 months later. Sarah found a new job at a different marketing agency, partly because her affair with someone she'd met through professional networking had created complications within the industry community where she'd been building her career. Looking back on the experience, I'm grateful that I decided to bring Sarah dinner at her office that Tuesday evening. Without that discovery, I might have continued living in ignorance while she maintained her affair indefinitely, using the believable excuse of work obligations to cover activities that were systematically betraying our marriage. The empty office building was undeniable evidence that Sarah had been lying about her Tuesday activities, but it also revealed the extent to which someone can exploit your trust in their professional responsibilities to facilitate personal betrayal. I'm in a relationship now with someone who values transparency about her schedule and activities. We've discussed the importance of being honest about our whereabouts and maintaining appropriate boundaries in professional relationships that involve networking or industry connections. The most important lesson I learned is that the simplest lies are often the most effective at concealing major betrayals because they exploit our natural trust in routine explanations. When someone claims to be working late, it seems so ordinary and professional that it rarely triggers suspicion, making it an ideal cover for activities that would destroy your relationship if you knew about them. That Tuesday evening, when I found Sarah's office building empty, taught me that sometimes the most devastating discoveries happen when you're trying to do something thoughtful for your spouse. My intention had been to bring her a nice dinner during what I thought was a stressful work session, but instead I discovered months of systematic deception that had been hidden behind the most mundane professional excuse possible.